Hi friends, it's Gwen. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here to share my winter favorites. I have switched from doing monthly reading wrap-ups here on YouTube. I do those over on my Patreon. You can also always check me out on Goodreads and the Storygraph because I always post reviews for every single book I read there. However, I still like to do seasonal favorites, talking about my 5-star reads of a season because there's really not that many 5-star books, and those are the ones that I want to put on your radar. You know, if you don't already have them on your radar, I want to be the one to put them on your radar. So today we're going to go through the books that I read in December, January, and February. So December 2023, January and February of 2024 winter, and talk about my favorite books. I have 11 favorites, but I am going to talk about a couple of series because I read a couple of series. So let's go ahead and dive into some books that I don't have physical copies of. And the first one is The Exception to the Rule by Christina Lauren. This is the first book in the Improbable Meet Cute romance novella series. There's like 6 novellas in total, and they came out around Valentine's Day, and it was just so freaking cute. It was like emails back and forth between the characters, and you just saw them kind of like become closer and closer like through their emails over the years, and I highly recommend you give this one a go. And then also in that same collection, I was shocked because I had some other favorite authors in the collection, but this author I have never read from before, and it was Royal Valentine by Sarai Wilson, and this was the 6th novella of the Improbable Meet Cute series. And I'm shocked because I normally don't like royalty in my romance books, but this one just really worked for me, and I just thought it was so cute and wholesome, and I just really enjoyed it. It's about a princess that is kind of like sick of her princess duties, you know, woe is her, and she just wants like us to step out of the spotlight for a little bit, so she convinces her assistant to stand in for her since they look similar, and to go on a little like jaunt around the city of Rome. She passes out, this guy finds her, and the love story takes off from there. Definitely recommend those two. Those were my top 2 favorites of the collection. Now let's go ahead and jump into some books that I actually have copies of. So this one is going to look familiar because it ended up in my favorite books of 2023. Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher. I cannot stop thinking about this book. I can't even pinpoint what I love so much about it, except for like the banter between the characters and just the characters themselves. Also like the family aspects. The town is really fun. I don't know, I just really loved this one. So in this one you have Julian and Dahlia, and they knew each other like previously, and they're kind of reconnecting because Dahlia is moving back to town, and they are both work in, like, he works in construction, she works in the design industry, and they come together to work on this like old Victorian town, or this old Victorian house in their small town, and they fall in love. Oh, so freaking cute. It is spicy, so if you like clean, closed-door romance, this is not the one for you. But I'm highly anticipating the second book, and my friend Jessie from Reading with Jess has already pre-ordered it for me. I'm so excited. The next books I want to talk to you about is the Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Full transparency, I only rated the first 3 books 5 stars, and then I rated the 4th and final book 4 stars. Looking back now, these are definitely 5s. This is probably a 4, and this is probably a 3, but somehow overall, like, you just can't have one without the other. I think you need to read the entire series. You can just see how the length of these changed, and I think this length really worked, and this one was fine, but then this one, it really needed to be divided up into 2 separate books, and it could have been like a 5 or 6 book series, but as is, I absolutely loved it. This is like the Criminal Minds YA series. Like, I don't read YA, and I binged these, you guys. I loved them so much. So you have this, like, I think it's like 4 different teenagers that all have these like special abilities, and they help the FBI with these cold cases. They're taken out of their everyday life. They're in this like house and they all live together. So there's relationship things happening. They're also working these cold cases about serial killers and stuff. And it's just so interesting and so addictive, and I highly recommend it. I have not read The Inheritance Game yet, but I can't wait because her books are just so bingeable. I absolutely fell in love with the first book. I would say Cassie is like the main-ish character, but some of the other characters definitely play roles, like bigger roles in other books. And she's really good at reading people, like their emotions, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, kind of their motivations, things like that. And she is recruited in this first book. And then, of course, in the second book, we learn more about another character a little bit more in depth. We also still do follow Cassie and her story. Yeah, a new serial killer starts turning up. They're pulled into an active case. And then this third one, All In, it kind of changes up the story a little bit, but I really liked that, so the story didn't get stale. And then in the fourth book, I mean, things just kind of go haywire, and that's why I wish it was a little bit more spread out, but it is the conclusion to the natural series, so it's kind of a must read. But if you read YA, if you don't read YA, and you're just looking for a fast, bingeable, like thrilling CSI kind of ride, this is your recommendation. Okay, this one is also going to look familiar because it ended up in my favorites of 2023, and I will not stop recommending it. I loved it so much. It was the first book that I read in 2024. It is The Collected Regrets of Clover. This story just is something special. It tackles grief and dying and finding yourself and life in such an interesting way. You follow this death doula. She lives in New York City. She's lost her grandfather. She's living in his apartment, and she's, constantly seeing death and constantly experiencing loss, even if they're not people close to her. And she's also just trying to find her way in this world and figure out what life means, and also just treasure life and treasure the time that we have with the ones that we love. And it is just so good, you guys. The reason why I picked it as a reread is I always like to pick a favorite as a reread for my first book of the year because it sets me up right for the rest of the year. At least I'm like, I at least will have this book, But there were so many beautiful quotes, and I just really wanted to reread them, annotate a little bit, and highlight some of my favorite quotes. So I was very excited I was able to make this my first read of 2024. Okay, the next book that I rated 5 stars is Final Offer by Lauren Asher, but that means that I did complete the Dreamland Billionaires trilogy finally. The first book is The Fine Print, and I rated this one 3 stars, and I actually didn't know if I was going to continue in this series until I read Love Redesigned, and then I was like, okay, I have to continue. So I did. I read Terms and Conditions, which I rated 4 stars, and then I finished by reading Final Offer, and I rated it 5 stars. I think the reason why is because the series really follows the brothers and their journey to get their inheritance from their grandfather, and I felt so many emotions for Cal and his story, and I also loved the setting of the third one. It also was just a little bit of a slow burn, kind of a little bit of these characters have had a past, and you get to learn a little bit about that in the future. And also she's a single mom, so you get to learn about that and how to integrate lives, and how important children are in our lives, and how her daughter will always come first. And I don't know, you learn at the end you kind of hear everything's wrapped up, and I don't know, this was really something special. I will say that depending on who you ask who's read the trilogy, it seems like all of us have a little bit of difference of opinion, but I increasingly loved them more and more and more. I will say that this one deals with addiction and overcoming that, and it can be difficult to read about, so look up content warnings for this one. But I enjoyed the overall series, and I'm happy that I went back and finished these books, but this is officially one of my winter favorites. Okay, next up, this book I have had on my TBR for a while, and I was planning my birthday slumber party, and I wanted to do a movie watch with my patrons. I just picked some movies that I thought would be fun to watch. I had them vote, and they picked Happiness for Beginners, which is based on the book Happiness for Beginners by Catherine Center. And like I said, I've had this sitting on my TBR for a while, and I was like, oh my goodness, I should read the book first. So I picked it up and basically binge read it, and it was so funny, especially in like the first third of the book. It gets a little bit more serious like towards the end, but not serious, because basically it is like a contemporary romance story. I would say more contemporary than romance. Catherine Center does a really good job of like balancing that though. And I fell in love with the humor more than anything else. Unfortunately, the movie was not as funny, and it took a big part where all the humor was and took it out of the movie. So I didn't love the movie as much, but if you have watched the movie, it gives the vibes, but not the heart. That's what I say, because the book has the heart, and it's about this like woman that is going to this like outdoor survival type course, and she's like the oldest one there, and it's just about her time hiking and, you know, coming in tune with nature and meeting other people that are much younger than her. And in the beginning, it's really, really funny because her brother's best friend is also going on this, and they take a road trip there to the place together, and the antics back and forth and the banter back and forth, hilarious. So yeah, I highly recommend this if you're looking for a laugh or just a fun outdoor adventure, romance, age gap. Yeah, highly recommend Happiness for Beginners. All right, I have 2 more books to talk about. The next one is a graphic novel, and it's Sunny Makes Her Case by Jennifer and Matthew Holm. Jennifer writes the stories, Matthew illustrates. They're a husband and wife duo, but this is the 5th book in, well, the 5th graphic novel in the Sunny series. So I believe I have these in order. The first is Sunny Side Up. Oh, it's so shiny. Sunny Side Up. The second one is Swing It Sunny. The third is Sunny Rolls the Dice. Then Sunny Makes a Splash. And finally, Sunny Makes Her Case. These are middle grade graphic novels and about our main character, Sunny, who you can see strutting her stuff right here on the cover. This was something really, really special because it is middle grade. It's set in the 70s, and Sunny is sent away to her grandfather's home in Florida because her parents are dealing with some tough topics and tough situations with her older brother, and he ends up getting sent off to like military school and stuff like that. Obviously in this one she's coming back from that and readjusting. This is about like Dungeons and Dragons, and then this one is like set during the summertime, of course. And in Sunny Makes Her Case, the one that is my actual winter favorite, you know, Charlie's barking. Sunny is obviously in middle school, and in middle school clubs and organizations are a really big thing, but she tries sports. She's not really into sports, and she's having a hard time finding like an after school extracurricular activity. And her friends suggest that they start a debate club. They start a debate club, and it goes from there. But what I love about these series is that they really do take inspiration from their own lives. Here's like the real Jennifer and her real friend that started a debate club. So I love that it has like that tie-in with their real life. And I just think these are so wholesome and fun, and the art is really like cartoony and fun, and I will continue to read this graphic novel series. I had no idea a fifth one was coming, and as soon as I found out about it, I immediately pre-ordered it and read it like within the week that it released. That's how excited I am about these. So if you're looking for some graphic novels to add to your TBR and you like middle grade, I would highly recommend the Sunny series. All right, and the last book that I want to chat about is The Women by Kristin Hannah. Oh, this book was so good, and I should not be shocked because I really have loved the 3 books that I've read from Kristin Hannah. The first book I ever read by Kristin Hannah was The Great Alone, and it was so good. Immediate like love for the author and the way that she writes her stories, and they're more character driven than I typically like, but she balances a plot and character so well that you almost, like, I almost fall in love with her characters more than I ever dreamed that I ever would. And then I read The Four Winds, which I never thought I would read, but I did, and I loved it. It was like an immediate 5-star. When I finished that book, I had such an emotional reaction, and this was no different. The Women is about the women who were in the Vietnam War. And for a long time in America, during and after the war, people denied that women were in the Vietnam War, which is crazy to me because, like, literally they were. Like, I don't understand how people were like, women aren't in the Vietnam. Yes, they were. And I love that she tackles these like little known or lesser discussed moments in history. So in this one, Frankie decides that she wants to join the armed forces and go to the Vietnam War. She wants to make a difference. So she does a little bit of schooling, she heads over, and she is a combat nurse. And she does a couple of different kind of like platoons or whatever they're called. But a combat nurse is no joke, okay? No, they're not on the front lines, but all of the stuff that's happening on the front lines, she ends up seeing in a very different light because she's seeing all the people brought in, you know, being injured, the dying, the sick. She's seeing all of that every single day. So it does talk about the Vietnam War. It talks about what's happening back home in the U.S. during the Vietnam War. And it's very gut-wrenching because I can't imagine, like, it blows my mind. I was in the military. I mean, obviously nothing even close, but I feel like even though I can't understand the time period or the like stress and like job of being a combat nurse, I can understand the camaraderie and the friendships that form and the stress of the job and the pressure and the expectations. And then she comes home and is completely like a fish out of water all over again because nobody appreciates her. Everybody's shunning her. Her parents, she doesn't have any friends except for the friends that she made over in Vietnam, and they're all back in their home states. But I love how they stayed in contact and like kept each other going, and they truly were there for each other like throughout their lives. And it just made me sick to my stomach to know that during this time, the women were not getting the care that they needed to take care of the trauma that they experienced in the Vietnam War because everybody wanted to deny that they were there. There was so much lying and propaganda about the Vietnam War that people in America had no idea what was happening. And I'm sure that still happens today. Like, how do we know? How do we really know what's going on? We don't know. And that's why it's so important to listen to people when they tell you their stories. And Kristin Hannah told us a really good story, giving a realistic, believable look at what it was like for these women during the Vietnam War and what happened when they came home. It's so powerful. The beginning is very thrilling. It's very action-packed. It's very, like, in your face. And I would look up content warnings because it does deal with a lot of death and dying and mutilation and, you know, all of the things. And the second half is a little bit calmer, a little bit more slower paced, but not slow, but just very, like, it really makes you think, and it really does give you a glimpse into what was happening in this time period in America. So I would say of any book on this list, I mean, this is like the newest release on this list. So if you like historical fiction, obviously you've already read this, or you're going to very, very soon. But even if you don't like historical fiction and you've ever wanted to, like, dip your toes in, if you want a book about strong female characters, about war, about overcoming the odds, then I highly recommend The Women by Kristin Hannah. But with that, those are my favorite books that I read this winter, and you can check back at the end of spring to find out what new books I want to recommend to you. Let's see, since we're doing winter favorites, we're going to either do a blue heart emoji or a snowflake or both in the comment section down below. Also, let me know one of your favorite books that you have read so far this year. Maybe you can put a book on my radar. And yeah, that's it for this video. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you're all having a lovely day or night, and I'll see you guys again in another video very soon. Bye, friends.